Good evening, everyone. We continue our study in the book of Second Samuel, and we are entering two very important chapters of Second Samuel in chapters 11 and 12. And we will go through it very carefully in a little bit more detail. And I ask all of us to bear in mind that this is a very Hebrew expression of events. It is narrated in Hebrew and is given in a culture which is fairly different from where we come from. And so the way that people look at things and the way that the narratives work cannot be evaluated using 21st century Western thinking. It needs to be understood from a more ancient view of things. And is these are two chapters which, when we read it in the English or in any other translation, may not carry the full weight and understanding. And so, in the next few days, when we are going through the next couple of chapters, let's pay attention to the Hebrew words as well. We begin in verse 1. Now, verse 1 uh, is a different narrative from chapter 10. And we learn from chapter 10, we have Joab, who is the captain or the general of his army. And they were going against the Ammonites who were trying to solicit the help of the Syrians to fight the war for them. And the Syrians were crushed. And so the Ammonites is continuing to be a problem, although they initially wanted to be subservient to the Davidic kingdom. They found reasons to go against David. Now, in chapter 11, verse 1, is an incident as it begins a narrative as something that is way after chapter 10. And so it happened, and it says in the spring. Uh, I think this phrase here, in the spring, literally means the return of the year. It does not specifically say the spring, and so this is an interpretation by the translator. So when the year returns, and generally when the year will return around the month of Nisan, that's where the Passover month is, and generally that period of time is the springtime. So this is what we call an interpretation. It seems that this is a period of time where the fields have grass and stocks up, and so that when they go to battle, the horses have food to eat. And that's why it says here, it is at the time when the kings go out to fight. And so David sent Joab and his servants with him. This would be his armies, and all Israel, that would be the bigger portion of the 12 tribes. And they brought destruction on the sons of Ammon. Now, the idea of destruction on the sons of Ammon uh, is the fact that they are causing. So you say causing them to be destroyed. This is the phrase. Not that they're all dead or anything. It's just an expression that they are going out and they're winning that battle. And it says that they besiege Rabbah. And so Rabbah here is the capital of the Ammonite kingdom. Now, some say that this is the present day Amman. Now, I put a question mark here because we don't know, but that's what is commonly understood in Jordan today. And then the strange thing here is David stayed in Jerusalem. So he didn't go for battle. And they came and they had actually, we see this as a besieging, a binding, they have encircled the city. So they have been attacking Ammon, and they have been winning. And now it comes to the capital of Ammon, and that would be Rabbah. And they encircled the city, and David is not present in this period of time. Verse 2, the whole expression of this last statement, David stayed in Jerusalem, and that would mean that he is in his palace, right? A house of cedar. Remember in chapter 5, he was given a house by the king of Hiram, right? The king of Tyre. And so now at evening time, and this is Erev, it would be the day turning dark. The day turning dark. And David got up from his bed. This is a, how should we say this? You can call it a couch rather than a bed, right? From his couch. But in those days, a bed and a couch is kind of interchangeable. So it was close to evening time. He got up from his couch. Not that he was sleeping. He must have been seated down. That's why you get the word got up. He rose up, right? He rose up. This is the word. He rose up. If he is rising up, he must be seated down or lying down in this couch. And with that, he then walked, right? And then he walked around the roof of the king's house. Remember, this is the palace. And so you need to know that these are a series of events. So David got up from his couch. That's number one. And then he walked around the roof of the king's house. He was surveying the vicinity, right? He was surveying the vicinity. And then the next one is, and then, this is an and then, as he was surveying, and then he saw, right? He saw a woman, and she was, well, the English word translated here is bathing. The word here literally means washing, right? Washing. And so we find that in Genesis chapter 18, we read of Abraham seeing the 3 visitors that came to his tent. He rushed out and he offered to wash their feet. That is the same word. So the woman was washing. Now, this word could mean washing something, could mean washing herself, could mean washing clothes. So, that's a lot of context that we need to build into this. So whether she was really bathing herself or washing herself, and how she was washing herself, we really don't have all the details. But we do know that he is washing something, and likely to be herself, because most translations would say, to use the word bathing here, in terms of washing self, right? In terms of washing self. Now, whether she was fully clothed, not fully clothed, we are not sure. And so the artist's impressions, when you look at such drawings, would give you a more modernistic perspective. However, the narrative here basically just tells us that he was walking around the roof, and from the roof, right, from the roof, he saw a woman, and she was washing herself or washing something, possibly herself on the roof, or washing clothes. We don't know. And the woman was very beautiful in appearance. And this phrase is a very interesting phrase. The woman, this is the phrase. The translation could be explained this way. Was very good, very good. Well, I guess you could say very good in vision or appearance. What else is that? For the sight, everything is very visual. So she was very good to be seen, to be looked at. That is the expression. Now, of course, we have a more modernistic expression, was very beautiful in appearance. The word beautiful is our translation, but it's not wrong. It's our own way of understanding it. But the literal rendition is that the woman was very good in the sight, in her appearance, in a vision. As David looked at her, the how would you say, this word here, very, right? This word here, very, is a very important word because it expresses some intensive form of goodness in the appearance. And so she was very attractive to David in his eyes. All right? In the appearance means it's in his vision, in his eyes, looking at her. Now, obviously, we have this English idiom, right? Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. And the beholder here is David. And David saw this woman, and she was either bathing, washing herself, washing something. And the description here is not about a modernistic view of the woman, but very much in the appearance to David. And typically, this refers to the woman as a whole, and particularly how she conducted herself, her appearance, her vision, her face, all of these put together, and it kind of thrilled David. In verse 3, it says here, so this word really means and then. After David caught this vision, David then sent. Now, it doesn't say who he sent. And so the word servant is interpreted or supplied by the translator. He sent someone or someones, we don't know. And so we call them servants, which is fine, I guess. Or in the old days, we call them messengers. So David had sent someone to represent him and inquire about the woman. The word inquire means to ask about her, right? Inquire is to ask about. Ask regarding her. Inquired about the woman. And then he said, and said. Now, this word someone, let me just put it in a different color, is also supplied by the translator, and I will strike this out. The word here is, and he said. By saying he said, it appears that David seems to recognize the woman. When you put someone said, then it is somebody else who's saying. But the way it is spoken is exactly how it is translated here. Is this not but Shiva, the daughter of Eliam, the and it says here, the Ish of Uriah the Hittite. And so I would submit that, in my opinion, I think this is what David had recognized, right? This is what David recognized. And when David recognized, what is important is he recognized this of Uriah. And if you remember, Uriah is one of the soldiers in his army. And so this is a key. This is a soldier, right, of the army. Now, we would come back to this, and I just ask you to remember at the back of your mind that being a soldier is important in this story, because it had Uriah been someone else who is there in the town selling something, or building something, or taking care of sheep, that would be a totally different result altogether. However, in this case, Uriah is known, and Bathsheba is also known. So now in verse 4, then David sent messengers. And so we see this as people that David sends. And hence, this word messenger will fit here, and not just servants. That interpretation by the translator may not be as accurate as you want it to be. Now, what happened was this. This word "and" is "and then." And so this happened next. And the word here is and well, this word here is not "and had her brought." It says here, and he brought her, right? And he brought her. And the reason why it is he, which is David, is because messengers represent David. And so oftentimes in the Hebrew Bible, you have this mix of plural messengers, and then suddenly you have a singular, a third person singular here that says, and then he brought her. And it doesn't mean that David himself brought Bathsheba or Bathsheba. It is that the messengers had brought her, and so the messengers actually represent David. And so there is no conflict of grammar here. It is a very oriental way where let's say an ancient emperor sends messengers to a faraway land to talk to somebody. Now, the conversation would be that the messenger actually represents the king. And so it is as if the king had done it. And so this is what we would mean that he brought her. And the next one is a third action, and then, right? And then she came to him. So there are three actions that we have seen in this one particular verse. 1, 2, and 3, and she came to him. The next one is, there is no word that is missing. Let me just put it here. This would be an "and then." That is a fourth action. He slept with her. Now, this word "slept" literally means lie down. Now, depending on the context, it could mean to sleep. It could mean to rest. Because you're talking about lying down, it could mean to relax. It could also mean to have sex. It's the same word, right? It's the same word. And so by context, I would have to say that this would be the final meaning. To lie down means to have sex with her. And so that would be action number 4. Now, the next one here is not an and then. This word here is a conjunction to tell us uh, that that she had purified herself from uncleanness. This is the state that she was in this particular event. What does this mean? The word purify is to cause herself to be holy. Just bear with me with those words first. Uncleanness here literally means uncleanness of ritual uncleanness. And typically you find that this is a period of impurity. And by this would be menstruation. And so the idea here of her making herself holy literally means she has made herself clean from menstruation. And what does this mean? It means that she is already after the menstrual cycle, menstrual period. Because according to the Torah, a woman who is having menstruation cannot offer sacrifices. And number 2, cannot have sexual relations with a man. And so this whole passage here is saying that when David had sex with Bathsheba, she was already clean from her menstruation period. That would be the piece of information that we are given. And then the next one here is also another word that is missing. It is, and then this would be action number 5. She went back to her house. So in one verse here, in 11 verse 4, we have 5 actions, one after another, with a piece of information that is inserted in between to say that the sexual act here is not against the law in terms of uncleanness or in terms of impurity, because God has laid down a law that a man and woman is not to have sex during her unclean period. And so verse 4 is basically giving us the information that that part is not a concern to us. Now in verse 5, I don't like this but it's there. And then what this means is that after that episode in verse 4 of the 5 actions happening, and there was a sexual relations between David and Bathsheba, now it says the woman, and we now have a very specific woman, because in Hebrew, when you have a definite article, we now know exactly who the woman is, and that's Bathsheba. And she conceived. Now the word conceive here means she became pregnant. She became pregnant. When she realized that she became pregnant, now how would she know that she had become pregnant? In those days, they don't have a pregnancy test kit. And so much of things that we read in the Bible has got to be very visual. And so this is probably something that is in along the lines of 1 to 3 months would have passed. Because something visual has to be seen, that they would realize that a woman is pregnant. Either the tummy has enlarged, maybe there is morning sickness, I don't know. But just realize that those of you who are women would be very aware of this, that there are signs when a woman is actually pregnant. And because of this, then there is another word here. So, the word so is and then. After she realized that she is pregnant, this word says sent, right? She sent what? Because we don't know what what actually is here, but the translator has given us the word. I would say that the word send is send messenger. She sent a messenger, and then and this would be and then. The messenger had informed David. This word inform David is to report to David. And it's to say and said, and then said, right? And then said. And note the words. It's very interesting here. It says here, I am pregnant. So now let's take a look at this. Now that you have seen how sending messengers affect the words. When you send a messenger, it represents the sender. When it represents the sender, the text uses I. The sender is speaking, but it actually represents Bathsheba. You see that? And so the text is very interesting because the Hebrew text uses this concept of sending, and it's a very important concept. When you send someone, you actually send to represent. And in that conversation, it is said that Bathsheba had said, I am pregnant. And so this would be the messenger talking to David, and the messenger is speaking on behalf of Bathsheba to say, I am pregnant. Now, things would have happened in the mind of David. This is going to be a very awkward situation. In fact, it is absolutely embarrassing for a king to have impregnated somebody else's wife. And with this, we are beginning to see some maneuvering by David to work around the Torah. That is what we're going to see in this concept here. Verse 6. Then David, this then would be and then, right? And then it says here, David sent. So we have the word sent. I would say this is not word, this is messenger. To be consistent, we have this word messenger in verse 4, right? In verse 4, David sent messenger. He sent it to Joab, the front general. Then he says, send me Uriah the Hittite. And so Joab sent Uriah to David. And so what is going to happen here is that we are beginning to see some maneuvering. What do you mean by maneuvering? To hide this embarrassment. Now, what was David trying to do is this. Knowing that Uriah is a soldier of Joab, and so the information was to send Uriah to David. And not only to send Uriah to David, David was trying to maneuver such that Uriah would come back and have sex with his wife. And then when his wife becomes pregnant or he finds that out, then it would be appearing as if Uriah has impregnated his wife. And that is the event that is unfolding before us. That is the scheme of David. And so, verse 7, it says here, when Uriah came to him, and the word when is and then, Uriah came from the battlefield. And so David had a nice conversation with him. So David asked about Joab's peace, right? All this well-being is shalom. How is Joab? And so this is about asking the shalom of Joab and that of the people. This would mean that the shalom of the people and the condition of the war and the shalom of the war. And so all of these is about shalom. That is to talk in general, really. How are things? Now in verse 8, then again, all of these is a narrative, right? It is one after another. So we have here, and then David said to Uriah, and this idea here is go down. This word go down is an imperative. It's an instruction to Uriah. Go down to your house. Now, what does go down to your house mean? It means that David's house is a palace, would be on a hill, and Uriah's house would be further down. And so that would be the way that this phrase is spoken of. It is to go down. And it is definitely a terrain reference. So go down to your house and wash your feet. Now, this is a very, how would you say, a very oriental way, a very oriental expression. I think when we talk about washing of feet, when you have walked a lot, and so we have this same idea in verse 2, wash, that Bathsheba was washing, right? Verse 2. Same word, wash. And here is to wash your feet. Wash your feet means to clean yourself. You've come back dirty from the battle, long journey. So washing your feet is also symbolic of making yourself clean. And so the word here, so it is, and then Uriah went out of the king's house. And so what we find is we have Uriah here. He left the king's house and let's see here. It says here, he went out of the king's house. And what followed him? There was something that was sent after him. Sent after him is not the word sent. This word sent is to go after him. But in the English, of course, it's called send. But it gets confusing when the Hebrew word used send, to send a messenger. sending what we say, sending gives. It says here gives. It's not really gives. It talks about presents, but the presence here is likely to be food. Was sent to him after Uriah went out of the king's house. Right. This is about an offering. Is about gives. Is about food, and so when you make an offering to God, it's about food, right? You don't give gold to God. And so this is that same word of gifts, right? This is a lifting up, the lifting up, and it does gives a picture of food to be sent to Uriah so that he would enjoy himself there. However, in verse 9, the plan of uh, David took a turn for the worse, actually. We find this word, and then Uriah slept at the door of the king's house. The word door here would be the opening. And it seems that he actually he went to clean himself and he came back somewhere here. And he was there together with all the servants of David. And he did not go down to his house. This was what shocked David, because he thought he went out of the door means he has left. So when he says left the king's house, he just merely left the door. And that's the narrative that we have. And so David sent the food after him. But Uriah did not go back, and he was there at the door or at the gate, at the compound of the king's house. In verse 10, now, and I would like to use this word, and then they had informed David, saying this: Uriah did not go down to his house. David said to Uriah, did you not come from a journey? Means that, did you not come from a long way? So why did you not go down to your house? See, the idea that David had was, when you go down to the house, one, you'll be home. Two, you'll be with the wife. And three, it is expected for Uriah and Bathsheba to be intimate. That's the plan. That's a plan that David had. Verse 11. Verse 11 shows us how loyal Uriah is to David. And so Uriah said to David, and then, right after this speech, and then Uriah said to David, you see, we are now in battle. The ark and Israel and Judah are staying in temporary shelters. And you need to understand that this word here is Sukkot. Sukkot would be a cover of leaves. What this means is that they are out in the open, they are out in the battlefield, and the ark, Israel, Judah, all the 12 tribes are out there. They are under the moon, under the sun. They are just temporarily covering themselves with the leaves they can find. And that is the mode of, well, I guess you could call it camping, but that's how they lived out there when they are at war. It says here, and my Lord Joab and the servants of my Lord, are camping. Now, this word camping here, the word camping here, although it can talk about tents, we can talk about Sukkot. They are there in the open field. And so this is now representing the same thought, right? Same thought pattern. And then Uriah says, with this in mind, when all my brothers in arms are out there, when the ark of God is out there to fight the battle, should I then go to my house, eat and drink, and to sleep with my wife? So you notice this is this right here. By your life. So let me just use a different color. This is a very interesting statement. By your life and the life of your by your life and the life of, well, it says here your soul, right? Your soul. If I will do this thing, right? I will not do this thing. And so this is a very firm position that he cannot be seen to enjoy himself where his brothers in arms are out there fighting and not enjoying themselves. This is the whole verse 11 to express that it is not possible for him to do that because they are all fighting together. In verse 12, then would be and then. David cannot convince Uriah to go home because it makes a lot of sense. David said to Uriah, stay here today also, and tomorrow I will let you go. And so the next day, the idea here is I will send you off. It is not let you go back, right? It's send you off. It's using the word send. I will send you away back to the battlefield. And so Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the day after. Verse 13. Although this was mentioned, this is actually a background information. It is a continuation of the first phrase here. And then David said to Uriah, stay here also, and tomorrow I will send you off. And it continues to this. And then David summoned. The word summoned here is call. Called Uriah, and then he ate and drank in his face, or to his face, in his presence. And then this word here, he made Uriah drunk. Now this word here, drunk, is intoxicated. And one of the things that you find, the eating and the drinking is always about alcoholic drinks. It's not about grape juice. And in the evening, Uriah went to lie down on his bed with his Lord's servants at the opening of the palace. And he did not go down to his house. And so he did not meet his wife. And so he did not he was not intimate with his wife. And so the plan of David backfired. Backfired. Now, with this, we come to the end of today's segment, and we will continue tomorrow from verse 14 onwards.